before we begin the debate, I would like to invite all the candidates. You're standing behind podiums. I'd like to invite you to step forward in front of me, if you may, in the sequence in which you are standing. Come together, please. And I would like to invite everyone in the hall to please stand for the national anthem of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, performed by one of the country's biggest stars in music, Timi Dakolo, ladies and gentlemen.
Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call, obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
If I could ask you to please take your podiums now. Thank you, Timi Dakolo, for that wonderful rendition of our national anthem. Now, we have five 30-minute segments on topics that matter most to you, the voter, and we'll start with the suitability of the candidates, and then for the highest office in the land, of course, and then we'll move on to the economy, security, education, and health. And then we'll end with 30 minutes on the rule of law, human rights, and corruption. So in that order. Now, my dear candidates, you have agreed to a set of rules. You'll each be given 2 minutes to answer a question or make your intervention, except for your opening statement. We're generous. We're going to give you 3 minutes for that. If you are directly referenced in any shape or form by a fellow candidate, you do have the right to reply, a rebuttal, for 1 minute, if time permits, if we have time in the program. Now, I am a firm but fair traffic warden, so I will stop you. I have a clock over there if you exceed your allotted time so that we can stay on schedule. Is that okay? Now, let's begin the first segment of the 2019 presidential debate, where we hear your opening statements, and this is where we explore your suitability for the office of presidency. And I will start now with the candidate on my left from the Young Progressives Party. Sir, you have 3 minutes to tell us why you should be president.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. On the 29th of May, 2019, I will be sworn in as the 8th President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. With the support and the votes of the Nigerian people. That will happen because I am putting myself forward to serve you, Nigeria and Nigerians. It is time for a different kind of leadership. My government will have a kind of approach to Nigeria's problems that we've never seen before in this country. And that is a foundational approach that addresses the root causes of our challenges. The first of which is, are we a nation really? Or are we just a country? And as I would argue, a broken one. And so we will come at this problem by first of all defining the foundational philosophy of the Nigerian state. establishing a national ambition around which all of us can unite, that rises above the things that divide us. We will restructure this country constitutionally so that it can actually fulfill its potential. We will establish effective national security. We will work with women as equal partners. They will not just be in the kitchen or the other room, but they will have a seat at the table. We will work with our young people, the youth of this country, as leaders of today, not tomorrow. We will break the backbone of poverty in this country by establishing education and literacy for all citizens of this country, giving them access. We will create skills for all our young men and women, establishing skills training centers in the 774 local government areas of Nigeria. And we will provide access to finance. We will restore Nigeria's standing in the world. Nigeria's place in the world has fallen. We will once again, be strong at home, powerful abroad. We will accomplish all this working together under my leadership as president, because I have been prepared for the office of the president. Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria for 5 years, leading far-reaching reforms in the financial system that have touched the lives of millions of Nigerians, including the bank verification number, saving our banks. 17 years as a United Nations official and as a professor in one of the world's most prestigious universities of international business and economic policy. I am ready, and it is time.
Thank you very much, the candidate for the Young Progressives Party, the YPP. Now I'll turn to Fela Durotoye, the candidate flag bearer for the ANN, the Alliance for New Nigeria. To many voters watching, you are a relative newcomer. But indeed, yourself, you said that you're not a politician. You've described yourself as, quote, a nation builder. But you aspire to the highest political office in the land. Why should Nigerians put their faith in you and anoint you President Durotoye?
Well, thank you, Mark, and a very good evening to you all. My name is Fela Durotoye. I am a business management consultant, a leadership expert, and a nation builder. And that's really at the core of my heart. Many times when people ask me, who is a nation builder? I say, well, it's really as simple as A, B, C, D. Someone who accepts responsibility for the well-being of his nation, not just his own personal well-being. Somebody who believes in the greatness and the potential of not just the nation, but the people to be able to actualize that greatness. But then C, somebody who commits. Has committed their time, their talents, their gifts, their wealth, their resources. And lastly, somebody who doggedly does everything that is possible to deliver the future of that nation. And when I say the future, I mean a time zone that is yet to come. No, that's not what I mean. I mean everything a nation can be but has not yet become. Everything a nation can do but has not yet done. Everything a nation can have but has not yet possessed. Nigeria, undoubtedly, is one of the most blessed nations on earth. When you think about the human resources, when you think of the natural resources and the mineral resources, the question is, why haven't we fulfilled our nation's potential? Well, because we have been ruled and not led for the last 50-odd years. And because rulers suppress the potential of others, whereas leaders support those people to release their potentials. I am a leadership expert. I have served the people of Nigeria. I have helped businesses for the last 27 years of my career. I currently mentor over 10,000 business leaders and 20,000 business professionals on the Fela Durotoye Leadership Network. I have dedicated my life to the service of the people of Nigeria. So why am I running for the office? Because we have been failed in leadership and in governance. Those whom we have accepted to go into governance and handle the business of governance are people we probably would not have hired ourselves. Tonight, I know you would hear many of the things that people have done, the former this and the former that, well, I do not come to you with any former titles. I only come to you with the hope of the future of this nation. Because Nigerians have lost hope. Today you can see that in drug addiction, suicide rates, and in migration. I will restore that hope in Nigerians, and together we will build a new Nigeria where there is jobs and opportunities for all, where businesses succeed, and the son of a nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody, because it will be a nation that works for all. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to our final candidate, and that is someone who will be well recognized in the room, Obi Ezekwesili of the ACPN, the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. Now, madam, it surprised many of us when you threw your hat in the ring and said, I want to be president. What compelled you to run, and why should Nigerians give you their vote?
Good evening, fellow Nigerians. My name is Obi Ezekwesili, and I'm the presidential candidate of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. Nigeria, our country, is in dire straits. Nigeria needs to be rescued urgently. The trouble with our country was identified by Chinua Achebe, one of the illustrious sons of this country, who is now late, when he said that the problem with Nigeria is simply and squarely the failure of leadership. What we see in our country is massive failure of leadership. Our children are failed. Some 44% of our children are stunted because they are malnourished. It leaves a lasting effect on them. Our young ones are hopeless in the midst of all of us, because annually, some 2 to 3 million of them would graduate from school, high school, and tertiary education, and find no jobs. Our women are being failed. Some 60% of them are poor. Whether it's the north or the south or the east or west of Nigeria, there is massive poverty. We have no business being the world capital of poverty. It is urgent for us to change the direction of our country. Because it is failure of leadership, it means that our politics is culpable. Our politics has become politics by the politicians, for the politicians, and of the politicians. Many of you know me not to be a politician. However, I have been a technocrat that understood the political context of this country. And it's very clear that except we disrupted the pattern of politics that we have, we will continue to fail, and we must no longer fail our people. That is why I am running for office. I bring with me the track record of being able to fix problems. As a technocrat in government, I had many assignments that I had to fulfill. I served the Nigerian people. In serving the Nigerian people, I was conscious of the fact that it is exactly the opportunities that Nigeria gave me that made me the child of a poor public servant and an enterprising mother to become the person that I have become. I have the capacity, the competency, and the character to take on this new direction of leadership that our country deserves.
I think we're going to a break now in a moment, so I would like to say thank you for those opening salvos. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll be talking about the economy. That's what everyone wants to know about on the 2019 presidential debates. Welcome back to the 2019 presidential debate. Now, I have to inform the House and the audience that there was some jeering. Now, welcome back to the 2019 presidential debate. I have to inform the audience that there was some jeering to my right earlier in our first segment. So I would ask the audience, please first switch off your phones and please don't shout, jeer or cheer. We want to hear from the candidates. So the laughing, clapping and cheering in the hall, please let's keep that to a minimum. That's a standing rule. We'll make that a standing rule. I also want to say that we were expecting the candidates from the APC and the PDP, but as you can see, they're not here. They were here, at least Atiku from the Atiku Abubakar from the PDP did turn up at the debate. He was in the hall. At the last second, he decided not to appear. So you shouldn't worry about what you can't control. We will continue as is. And we're going to continue with arguably the most important subject to many of us out there as we cast our vote. When you ask voters what matters most to them, you're likely to hear them say the economy, jobs, the cost of living, and ensuring a secure financial future for themselves and for their families. Now, it's no secret that Nigeria's economy continues to face turbulent times. We've just exited from one of the worst recessions in modern history. GDP growth is at a tepid 1.8%. And the latest data in December of last year showed inflation at a whopping 11.4%. We have to sustainably strengthen the economy, boost manufacturing, build infrastructure, modernize farming, and most of all, create jobs. Now, the current government would say, if they were here, that they are on the path to doing that with bold plans and policies. Now, candidates, here is your chance to try to convince us that you can do a better job than them. Now, I'll ask a 2 minutes for a 2-minute intervention in this case. The clock is standing by. And I will begin, first of all, with the candidate from the YPP, Professor Kingsley Moghalu. Now, the economy. This is the single most important thing to many voters as they think, where do I put my mark? Nobody will, as you'll see from what I said, nobody will say that things are rosy. We've heard a lot of promises of what people can do, and we've spoken a lot about many of the problems. We don't really need to hear about what's wrong. I've just said it. We need to hear how we're going to get ourselves out of that. You have a very clear plan. Can you give it to me in 2 minutes, rapidly, colloquially, so that everybody can understand it? Your time starts now.
Thank you. Fellow Nigerians, let's first understand that we cannot fix the economy if we don't fix our politics. Our economy can never grow for as long as we are led by the incompetent, visionless, and recycled and arrogant old politicians that have run this country's economy into the ground and are seeking another 4 years of poverty for us. So let's first understand that the path to fixing Nigeria's economy depends on who becomes president in 2019. Therefore, the first order of business is to elect a president who understands how to manage the economy. My government will fix the economy by taking the approach that I will just spell out very quickly. The problem that we need to solve is that we don't have an economic philosophy. We will have to decide whether we're a capitalist country or a socialist country, and if we are, what type of capitalism we are practicing. So, my approach to the Nigerian economy is, first of all, to focus on reforming the educational system, ensure that our young people have the skills that can make them competitive in the 21st century and the skills that can give them jobs or help them to set up their own jobs. Then we will give them access to finance, which my government will do through a 1 trillion naira venture capital fund, which will give equity capital, not loans that you have to repay, because loans carry interest rates in Nigeria that are too high, or you may not have the collateral to be able to access loans. So we will invest in new businesses that will create millions of jobs over the next 4 years. That's the approach we have. Skills, capital, literacy, that's what will fix Nigeria's economy and take it into industrialization.
Thank you very much, candidates from the Young Progressives Party there. If I have time, I'm coming back with a follow-up question on that, but I will now turn to your fellow candidate, Fela Durotoye. Now, let me ask you about diversifying the economy. This is not something that is new. I remember my father talking about it back in the day, some 30 years ago. Diversifying away from oil. Non-oil makes up less than 10% of Nigeria's export revenue. It's too low. What are your plans to build the non-oil sector in terms of exports and, I guess, in terms of tax receipts? And what are the three sectors? Tell us the three sectors that you would target in these new engines of growth.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark, and to the people of Nigeria listening. The three most important sectors that we need to focus on will be the sectors that help us not only to grow jobs, but to have great social impact in terms of growing our nation. So the three most important sectors are agriculture, housing construction, and road construction. If we fix agriculture, which currently, as we know today, 60% of Nigeria's labor force is currently employed in the agricultural sector. And yet, only 35% of our arable land is being used. We will drive aggressively land use for agriculture to 50%. And that will create for us an opportunity to be able to get under 30 million people altogether into the labor force. But that's not all. The infrastructure of this country is completely decayed. And that includes power, roads, and housing. Today, we have 108 million people that are homeless. Today, we have easily a power sector that is really crippling our businesses. So we will ensure that we fix power, we fix roads, and most importantly, we provide housing for our people. Like I said, collectively, this should be able to provide for us 30 million jobs in Nigeria. And I will be happy to continue to share with you exactly how in each of the segments we'll be able to do this. Because for agriculture, what we definitely need to do will be to make sure that we drive our commodities board so that farmers can once again be able to have an offtake when they do produce. Lastly,
I don't think you have a lastly. If I come back to you, you'll get your chance. Now, I have to move on to the candidate on the far right. That is the candidate for the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, the ACPN. Madam, there was a sobering report recently. It said Nigeria now has the highest number of poor people in the world. It's also true that the number of poor people living in extreme poverty in Nigeria has actually fallen, though, in the last 5 years from, I think, 112 million to 90 million. But the figures are still not good. If you are elected as president, tell us, in the simplest and most specific terms, how many Nigerians will you lift out of poverty, and how are you going to do it?
Our plan is to lift at least 80 million Nigerians out of poverty. The way that we plan to do this is that when you look at the Nigerians who are poor, it is very clear that they are poor because they earn below 700 naira a day and live on it. What therefore needs to happen is that this majority of Nigerians, over 50% of them, would need to improve their productivity. When people have higher productivity, they earn more. When they earn more, they lift themselves out of poverty. What are the ways of enhancing their productivity? Take a typical member of the Farmers Club in Nigeria. They actually constitute 1/3 of our workforce. And 60% of them are women. When you give inputs to women, they outperform even their male counterparts by as much as 40% in output. That essentially means that women will be lifted out of poverty enormously. The structure of our economy is such that services constitute 60% of it. The services is not high-end services. It is low productivity services. And so our focus would be on removing the barriers that stand in the way of these operators in the services sector. That would include improvement in policies that target the people in those sectors. It would include removing regulatory barriers that stand in the way of formalization. It would include prioritizing the investments that give public utility for their use.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. I'm going to turn back to Professor Moghalu of the YPP. Now, one big concern is the cost of government, paying for government. Yeah, the amount of Nigeria's budget that goes on recurrent expenditure. That's things like salaries and overheads, compared to capital expenditure, like building infrastructure, I suppose. It's a mathematical equation that needs to change. How would you practically and significantly reduce government spending?
Thank you very much. We're going to do that, first of all, by going into a program of recruitment and training and skills in our security sector that will reabsorb a lot of people away from the normal public service, people who are still young, to the police force. We intend to recruit 1.5 million new policemen and women over 4 years. That's one. Number two, we're going to have to retrain and rationalize the federal public service. How do we do this? It's not by kicking people out into the streets or just sacking civil servants. No. It is by having a program that is very clear in terms of helping them to move into more productive engagements in the private sector and retraining those who remain in the civil service to become much more productive.
That sounds like it's going to take a long time.
No, it won't. No, it won't. Within 2 years, my government will bring the cost of recurrent expenditure down to 50%. What it requires is political will and the ability to do what needs to be done. That's what needs to be done. Our politicians have carried this expenditure because they want to be, quote unquote, popular. They don't want to do the right thing.
Okay, as you were speaking, I looked over to my right and I saw Dr. Obi, a look go across her face. I mean, do you think that you have a better plan for reducing the cost of government than what we just heard?
But you interrupted my time.
I think you only had 2 minutes, right? I think we came to 2 minutes. I apologize. I will keep that 38 seconds in my pocket and give it to you later.
Okay. All right.
Dr. Obi, please, let's see how do we cut down the government, the mammoth cost of government?
Well, I would be starting out on a good place because the famous Diversifying report that looked into the rationalization of the bureaucracy has made very specific recommendations on the things to do. Some of the existing institutions and bureaucracies or agencies within our bureaucracy actually have no purpose that they serve. And so they have become conduits for bleeding the public treasury. When you deal with those, you're not dealing with a Nigerian who must be catered for. It is illegality that has taken hold, and so you deal with illegality by ending it. Number two is that if you looked at the productivity of our bureaucracy, it does matter that we should find the most competent and put them in leadership position. Today, that is distorted. Most of our bureaucracy ends up being warped in its arrangement. Productivity is not rewarded. It's the lack of it that gets recognized. We will switch that. In doing that, it becomes very clear and evident that any decision you're making on reducing the cost of governance is based on analysis, not merely wanting to get people out. The third thing is that The private sector must lead the economy. Many of the people who are in our public sector, if they found better opportunities in the private sector, they would take it. Most of the employment in our public sector was done by government as a way of pretending that jobs were being created. It's the private sector that creates sustainable jobs, and we will stay with that capacity by doing the right policies to encourage them.
Fela Durotoye. No great nation really progresses without a robust tax system. Name me one. It's hard to find one. Nigeria has one of the lowest tax to GDPs in the world. It's around 6%. I mean, compare that to Norway, which is at the top of that list, 60%. They've got the money to build schools. They've got the money to build roads and hospitals. They've got a system that works. How do you intend to get us a system that works and get Nigeria's tax receipts rolling in?
Well, thank you, Mark. And this is very clear that people are willing to pay taxes when they get value for the taxes that they pay. And unfortunately, one of the reasons why people are not paying taxes right now is that they not only do not believe that their taxes will be wisely or judicially used, but more importantly, because they have seen the wastage and the corruption that is in the system. Of course, there is also no penalties for tax evasion, as we have seen mostly by those who are the wealthy of this nation. So the four things that we're going to do to be able to ensure that we create value and that increases the amount of income that people are able to get, and of course the tax system, is to say, number one, we must reduce the cost of governance and completely eradicate the wastage in governance, which means starting from the presidency. There is no reason why the president's convoy should be a 30-car convoy just to go and drop the president at the airport.
So you're not going to have a 30-car convoy?
I will be riding in a bus that will carry other ministers, rather than have every minister's car trail after the president.
That would be a first. That would be a first.
Secondly, we must reform our institutions, especially our civil service institutions, to ensure that they are delivering excellence in service. Meaning that every civil service institution will deliver service in a way that makes the people realize that we are getting value for our taxes. The third most important thing is that we must then boost the economy such that we can grow jobs and grow the earnings of our people. When jobs are created and when businesses are booming, then there will be more taxes, and then our tax to GDP ratio will continue to grow. And then the last of all is that we must reorient our people and get them to understand that paying taxes is not just an obligation, but it is the way for them to create a sustainable way for their children to be able to have a better nation than the one they live in.
Thank you. Now, if my team is standing by, candidates, I want you to please turn your attention to the screens. There are screens there to your left and your right. Now, we've asked young people to send in their questions from the four corners of the country. And this first one comes from a YouTube content creator with 250,000 subscribers. Roll the tape.
Hi, my name is Dimaume. I'm 28. I'm a YouTube creator focused on beauty and lifestyle. The internet has revolutionized the way we communicate and access information. In the recent years, it has also become a means of revenue generation for many young Nigerians like myself. However, many people in this country still have no access to the internet, and for those with access, it is expensive. My question is, how does your administration plan to make the internet more accessible to Nigerians? And how do you plan to regulate telecommunication companies and internet service providers to ensure that consumers are protected?
Kingsley Moghalu, there is talk of this new industrial revolution that is going to be based on a future of digital, of AI, of all sorts of technology that will take us into a brave new world. Nigeria needs to be ready for it. You've seen some people are already working within that. We have young people, in fact 51% of the people voting at this election are between the ages of 18 and 35. You need their votes. They need jobs. How are you going to create a presidency that fosters the jobs and the environment of the future, the digital future?
Yeah. the focus of my presidency in terms of moving the Nigerian economy away from oil is going to be a focus on innovation. And innovation includes all forms of ICT, which is a big driver of innovation. One of the problems that my administration will solve when it comes to ICT is that you find a heavy concentration of ICT in urban areas. But the rural areas of this country have about 53% of our population, and they're not well served by ICT. We will create incentives for businesses, young tech startups, to move closer to the rural areas and bring more members of our population into the digital age. We are going to create a startup nation that is going to prioritize innovation. And there are many companies that are already doing a great job in Nigeria today. So the point is this, that when I become president, the ICT sector, we're going to focus, first of all, on infrastructure for the ICT sector, broadband coverage for this country. Secondly, we are then going to make sure that the ICT infrastructure moves to the rural areas and brings in one half of our population that is cut off from the modern civilized world. So we are definitely going to move this, and this is something that is going to be good for job creation for young people in this country. That's where the focus is, to create opportunities for startups, and that's where the venture capital fund comes in, because we will give young people investments, 100,000, 500,000, 1 million.
Where are you finding the money?
For the
Where are you
venture
going to find
capital
the money?
fund, I've said it in several statements. 500 billion of it will come from the private sector. It's a public-private partnership. 500 billion will come from the government. So it's a co-investment. And the fund is going to be run by the private sector. It will not be run by the government and become another empire of sleaze, such as we have seen in the present administration.
Now, when you say that's the present administration, it makes me think they're not here, the PDP and the APC, the two bigger parties. They're absent here. They're not here, Dr. Obi, they're not here to defend themselves. I guess I want to ask you what your thoughts are on that for 30 seconds.
I'm not surprised they are not here. They have just simply announced their exit from the governance of our country. I think it is important for us to acknowledge that there is a political class that simply needs to fade away from our country. Because the idea that the will of the people will be subordinated to the whims and caprices of our politicians should be a total anomaly. And today, as we in this country focus on the ideas, competitive ideas that would develop our country, if the two dominant parties cared about the Nigerian people, they would come here in order to have a contest of ideas on how we would fix Nigeria. Mark, I must let you know that for the Nigerian people, this is a moment to make a clear judgment as to whether we are connected to the issues that matter to the Nigerian people. We showed up for this debate, not because we're new entrants into politics, and I hope I speak for my two colleagues, but because we believe that it is time for a new kind of governance in Nigeria. It is time for the citizens of this country to take complete charge of the destiny of Nigeria. And so we stand before you today, not because we are the best in the country, but because we come with a sense that our country needs to be immediately rescued from the stranglehold of poor governance, bad politics, and governance failure. I represent a mindset where the citizens who occupy the highest office in the land and give legitimacy to politics should become the drivers of the future of this country. And it starts now.
I have to let fella Durotoye come in here. Fella, you're here, they're not. What does that say?
Well, it says that the future is here. That's what it says. And that all things have passed away. But I must say something to you, and Mark, and to the people of this nation. Pride always comes before a fall. And every time you believe that you have no need to tell the people what it is that you're going to do, it means that you are not there to serve them in the first case. You were going to rule over them. And we should not be surprised, for this has been consistent over the last 20 years. We have had 20 years of rulership, and rulers do not explain to their subjects what it is that they are going to do. They don't owe it to them. What I think the greatest deceit that we've had to deal with in this nation is that rulers called themselves leaders and make us subjects feel like followers. We are not followers, we are subjects to them. And now it is time to be free. We had had 58 years of independence, but not 58 years of freedom. And now the time has come for us to be free of this bad coin that has two sides that I believe are depicted here. And most importantly, it is time for Nigerians to truly begin to evaluate the things that matter and understand that leadership is about competence, about character. Leadership is truly about people who respect people, people who love the nation, and people who will uphold the law. Now, I believe very strongly that Nigeria has a clear choice to make, and that choice has to be made now. But the evidence of it is here for us to see.
It's getting hot in here. It's getting hot in here. Young Progressive Party.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Mike. Like my two colleagues, I am not at all surprised that the leaders of the APC and the PDP have decided to turn their back on the people of Nigeria and tell them finally that they never amounted to much in their eyes. Now, the reason they are not here, there are two reasons. One is arrogance. They believe that the people of Nigeria have no voice and no choice. That you will always come back to them. They believe that you cannot move away from them. They believe they've trapped you. They've kept you in bondage. They've kept you in bondage for far too long, and it is now time for us to send them a message. The second reason they are not here is because they cannot answer the questions. Very simple, very straightforward. They belong to the old class of recycled politicians who want to come to power with a sense of entitlement, but not a record of performance. They want to come to power with a sense of money and power, but not a record of service to the people of Nigeria. They cannot answer the intricate questions of the economy, the intricate questions of nation building. They cannot answer even the questions of security that some of them rode to power on as former people in uniform. And yet we see our country far less secure than it has ever been. So it is a record of failure on both sides. The APC and the PDP, one is a kettle, one is a pot. And they call each other black.